Good morning, fourth graders. Today we are on page 205 of your student journal, and we are going to continue talking about angles and angle measurements, but instead of estimating like we have been doing for our last few lessons, we are actually going to be measuring today. So you are going to need a tool. The tool that you're going to be needing looks like this. It's called a protractor, and usually they're plastic. Now, I don't want you to feel like you need to go out to the store and get one. If you have one at home, that's great. If you don't have one at home, your teacher should have attached the link to this Google document so you could get one and print it. If you are unable to print one, please reach out to your teacher and ask them for some guidance of what they want you to do. But I just printed one because I don't have one at home either. So what I'm gonna do, and if you have one as well, I want you to cut it out with me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a little cut right here. And watch how I'm gonna cut this before you start, because I really want you to try and have it match mine. I'm going to cut along the numbers, and I'm not going to cut all the way to this middle line because I want to keep that middle line. I'm going to cut down, and then I'm going to cut along this line the best I can. And it's just going to be for me, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but this would be the goal. Do you see that, ladies and gentlemen, how I left this center and I left a little bit of this line, but I cut on that line? So I'm going to do the same on this side. I'm just going to pinch it so I can get my scissors inside there, and then I'm going to start to cut it. Okay, so as I'm cutting it, I will show you again after. I'm going to cut it on this bottom line. We actually call this line the base line. I'm going to cut to about the circle, which we call the center or the origin. And then I'm going to cut up, and I'm going to keep some of that center there. Okay, that would be the goal, for it to look like this. Now, because this is big, I don't need to cut it all the way out. I might just cut this off so I can have it like this. Okay, so again, please either have the plastic version or print this, or reach out to your teacher if you can't do either one. But this is going to be important that you have one of these to work with. Okay, so we're on page 205. Now that I have my tool ready, I have this. I also have a ruler. A ruler is going to help me. I just have a short ruler. I don't even have a full ruler. If you don't have a ruler, just get something that you can use for a straight edge. Okay, so I'm going to set my tools aside, and our goal or our objective for the day is today I will draw and measure angles. Okay, so let's look at our vocabulary since we're learning about something new today. This just reminds us of what our angle is. And the key thing here is reminding us that this is the vertex. This middle point is the vertex. We're going to need to remember that for today. And then they just remind us our three ways we could say it. We could say CAB, or go backwards, BAC, or just angle A. I cannot do angle CBA because that would be off the angle. And then they tell us what a protractor is. It's a tool used to measure angle openings. And then they kind of give us some points. So I'll just kind of show you mine compared to this. They have the center, they have this baseline. Then they call something called the outer scale and the inner scale. So if you look at my numbers, starting on the outer ones, they go 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way to 180. But then I could also count backwards on the inner scale, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and all the way to 180. And the reason you want an inner scale and an outer scale is depending on how your angle is drawn. So I'll show you some of those examples when I get busy. I'm not going to really read this for you. You can refer to this if you need to, but I'm going to really focus today on how do you use this and what is this for. Okay, so I'm going to set my book aside, and I have my tools and I have my red pen. And if you want to watch me do one, here is my first problem. And my first problem says, Kevin designed a new roof for his house. The top of the roof has a 125-degree angle. Use a protractor to draw the 125-degree angle using the one ray given. So they want me to draw this time, and they want it to be 125 degrees. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is, they didn't give me a lot of space above this, so I'm going to draw it below. Now I'm going to turn my book, because when you use your protractor, you want one of the rays to be on this baseline. So this center or origin is where I want my vertex to be. And remember, this will be my vertex. So that's where I would want it to be. And then I want this on my baseline. So I can't cover it. The nice thing about real protractors is they're clear, so you can cover them. I'm just gonna have to do the best I can so I can see it. Okay, so now they want 125. I'm going to show you, if we notice there's no 125, I do see 120 and 130. Now the reason I'm looking at these 120 and 130 is, and not these, is this is why. This ray is pointing to the 0 and the 180. I'm going to always start with 0 when I'm counting. So for this ray, I'm counting at 0, and I'm going to count all the way up to 125, which would be right between 120 and 130. That is where my opening needs to go, or my next ray. So if I move this and I draw it, that would be a 125-degree angle. Now, does that make sense? I probably want to stop and ask myself, does that make sense based on what I already know about angles? Well, what do I already know about angles? I know that a perfect L would be 90. So if I had this, I know that a perfect L would be 90 degrees. So does that make sense? The whole thing's 125? Yes, it does. Okay, so let's see another one. This time, it's gonna be, instead of drawing, they're gonna ask me to measure it. Ted wants to fix a leak on the roof. Measure the angle the ladder forms with the ground. So this little arrow is what they want us to measure. So here is his ladder and here's the ground, and they want to know how big that is. Okay, so this is the angle they want me to measure, right there. And here would be my vertex. So what I would do is, my vertex should go in that hole, but since I can't quite cover it, I'm going to do the best I can. And this needs to be on my baseline. So if I look at my base and I go over here, I see 0 and 180. I'm not going to start at 180. I'm always going to start at the 0. So this time I'm going to be on the outer numbers. Okay, now this is where my ruler is going to come in, because it'll be easier if I see how long that is. So that looks to me, if I measure it, it looks right here that it is, remember I'm on my outer numbers because I'm starting at 0. 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and it looks like it's right here between 50 and 60, which is 55 degrees. Okay, so let's try some together, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you have your tools necessary. Again, if you don't have the tools necessary, please reach out to your teacher. Okay, Here is my first problem. It tells me to draw a 55-degree angle and use a protractor. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have my first line drawn, and I'm just going to use my ruler. So this is going to be my ray. There's my ray. Here's my vertex and my first ray. Okay, once you have your first ray done, we can set this and get our vertex in the point as close as possible, and our first ray on our baseline. And now I see a 0 and 180. We're going to use the 0, and we're going to go all the way up to, what did they want us to do it to? 55? Okay, so 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. So it's going to be right between 50 and 60. And then we can move it, and we can make our second ray. And does that make sense? It does, because I know a perfect L would have been 90. That would have been 90, and it's less than 90. I also know that half of the perfect L, like that, would have been 45. So it makes sense that it's more than 45. Okay, let's try another one. This time it says, Edwin wants to be safe while painting his house. So he places the ladder at a safe angle. What is the measure of the angle formed by the ladder and the grass? So here I see some grass, and here's his ladder, and this is the angle they want. So I'm going to trace it just so we can see it. There's the ladder. Whoops, I didn't trace very good. And here's the grass. So it looks like that's our vertex. Okay, so we're going to set up our protractor with our vertex in our center or origin, our one ray on our baseline, and this ray is pointing this direction, which means I'm going to start with 0. So I'm on my inner numbers. Okay, so 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and what does it look like it's pointing to? Looks to me it's pointing to about 70. Not 110 because I used my inner numbers. So I'm going to say 70 degrees. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, you're going to turn the page, and you have quite a few to try. You're going to be trying this page, and this page. Have a great day. Good night.